Hello. Now it's good afternoon because it's noon, right? Good afternoon. My name is the Reverend Tina Dio. I'm the minister here at this congregation, and we are going to have our forum here with Leia Roach right here, and I'm going to introduce her. But I wanted to caveat this forum in case folks were here expecting the Who Killed Affordable Housing forum. That was a misprint, unfortunately. Mistakes happen. It's all good. But that forum is actually going to be next month, the second Sunday of August at noon here. So I just wanted to caveat that if anyone was here expecting a different forum because of how it was advertised out in the paper. So today's forum is actually titled Parallel Conversations, a Los Alamos, Hiroshima, Nagasaki, and Unmapped Retrospective. And so from 2019 to 2023, Leia Barela Roach lived in Kyoto, Japan, initially for her 2-year master's in fine arts at the Kyoto University of the Arts Global Seminar Program. But she stayed for 2 more years to enroll in language school while continuing gathering information for future projects related to the nuclear legacies of Japan and the USA. After arriving back in Los Alamos, she has approached her time as a continuation of her fieldwork with a new perspective of her changing hometown after being away for 4 years. She invites us all to hear about her time in Japan and invites dialogue about understanding and maintaining peace in our lives. So Leia was born and raised in Los Alamos. The second generation in her family to do so is a member of this church. And her mother is Anita Barela, who is our new current vice president of our board here at the church. And after Leia graduated with an undergraduate degree in psychology and minor in Japanese studies, she lived in Kyoto, Japan from 2019 to 2023 to explore the Japanese perspective of the atomic legacy of her hometown and immerse herself in the Japanese language during her master's program and language school experience. So currently, Leia is finding her place in the world where psychology, art, and her love for global cultures can coexist as a career or passion project. So let us warmly welcome Leia today as our guest speaker.
Oh, and then how do I use the clicker?
To advance, you just push the...
Okay, yep. Okay, thank you. Okay. I was going to introduce myself, but Tina did a good job, so we'll just go to the next slide. So I was born and raised in Los Alamos, but because of my upbringing, I've been surrounded by fragments of our founding history because of the Manhattan Project throughout my life, and that's been unconscious or not. But one of the earliest instances I can remember was in elementary school. We learned how to access information in the library, and the librarian read from a reference book about Los Alamos and the Manhattan Project. And at the time, I had no concept of war or even what Japan was, but that we should be amazed about this history of our town. So then I always felt this urge to explore further what exactly that meant, what is our atomic legacy, and to understand more about Japan. So I was in the Global Seminar program where we were able to learn about contemporary art from the perspective of a global context. So we had researchers, artists, curators all come and tell their stories about how they, about the careers that they had, and then the students were also from different parts of the world as well as Japan. So the first slide is we're all having a dinner sharing food from our countries together, and in 2019, and then but then COVID happened, so it kind of shifted how the program worked since it became localized to just Japan, since people couldn't come in or out. And 2023, that's like the last time I saw my friends when we were walking around at night, and the reason we're in front of a convenience store, that was the only place we could find light, was in front of the convenience store. So that's where we took the picture. But they were my COVID pod. I know a lot of people had people they grouped with during the pandemic, and they were my pod, so they're very important to me. But during the program, we had different we did field work, and then we had different exhibits we had to do. So the first exhibit I did was after I had visited Hiroshima and Nagasaki, I took pictures around each area, and we took pictures around each area, and I was trying to find points of interest of what defines each town. Like, is there monuments, or is there just an atmosphere? And since I wasn't in Los Alamos, I couldn't do that. But also, because I'm from there, it feels more difficult to define what Los Alamos is. So I defined it with painting, and then put them on the placards. The next part of the project was the exhibition was held online because of COVID. So in the winter of 2019 and then like January 2020, I had visited Los Alamos for Christmas. So I interviewed some people about what it was like growing up in Los Alamos and like what experiences they've had or noticed anything about nuclear history or this legacy we have. So I illustrated some of them, and I wanted to do more. Like, the initial idea of my project was to do a book, but because of COVID, it kind of shifted everything, since I wanted to also interview people in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, but that became kind of difficult in that last year because of COVID. So I became more localized to Kyoto, which I'll explain further on. So I visited Hiroshima and Nagasaki to understand the unique cultures found in each city, as well as how the histories are presented to the public. And each city has their own way of presenting peace in the peace parks. But one of the differences is there's a hypocenter park in Nagasaki, whereas in Hiroshima, there's an unassuming plaque underneath a doctor's office. But Los Alamos, if it were to have a hypothetical hypocenter for the start of the Manhattan Project, I think it could be argued it could be the original location of the laboratory by the pond, and I think that's the ice house, that's the gazebo area. And there may be some other placards around that talk about, the laboratory, but that's kind of where our hypocenter is. That's where the project started, is around the pond, and that's still kind of our center piece in town today. And then, coincidentally, Kyoto City, which was my home for 4 years, was listed as a potential target for one of the atomic weapons. So Kyoto was on this list until July 1945. Kyoto was removed from the list after the Secretary of War, Henry Stinson, argued that Kyoto was a cultural heritage site and not a military target. So Stimson met with President Truman to urge that Kyoto be removed from a list. And as a side note, I must also mention that Stimson himself was instrumental behind the internment camps for Japanese Americans during World War II. But archaeologist and art historian Langdon Warner, which is that little picture right there, has been credited for advocating the preservation of Kyoto's cultural assets. So Kyoto has been marked from this unmapped history in neighboring Nara Prefecture with a monument dedicated to him for sparing Kyoto, housed in Abe Manjuin Temple. Another monument was also erected at Kamakura Station, which is about an hour from Tokyo. And then the other map is from 1945 of an overview of Kyoto, listed as like if it was a target. And if Kyoto was bombed, the hypocenter would be located in present-day Kyoto Railway Museum, which is behind Kyoto Station. So that's the front entrance of Kyoto Station. And so sites like Kyoto Station and Toji Temple would carry the legacy like Hiroshima's atomic bomb dome, or they could have crumbled like many of the other sites in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. So during my project, I thought a lot about what I call mapped and unmapped histories. So historical events that can be witnessed on a map or through markers and plaques, but I've often wondered, how do we mark what-ifs in history? Usually they're not marked anywhere except history books or footnotes, and I called these unmapped markers. So I explored this in my thesis, my paper, but also I had to do an art project with that. So I also have here a screenshot from Alex Willerstein's website, Nuke Map, and it's a little morbid, but it brings awareness to the devastation of nuclear war with the sites interface. And historical weapons can be selected, and you can choose any location on Google Maps and then see like what would happen if that bomb went off on a map, like present day. So you can see where the zones of the fallout appear. And so it makes it a little more real for people, I think. If you familiarize yourself, if it's somewhere you've been, then you understand like the impact of what the bomb would actually do. So combining my fieldwork and research I collected during 2019 and 2020, and because of the pandemic, I created a video and performance art piece throughout Kyoto. So I started at the Hypo Center near Kyoto Station, where I focused on the meditative process of folding 1,000 paper cranes. And then, my book idea kind of changed because sometimes there's things out of our control, and we have to improvise and discover creativity when we end up in a global pandemic, like things you can't really account for. So the video work itself is Parallel Conversations. It's a 23-minute long performance piece. And while I'm folding the cranes around Kyoto, there's an interview with my mother that I had over Zoom playing in the background. And I asked her about her upbringing in Los Alamos as she lived here during one of the many moves my grandfather did from job to job. And once again, she's since stayed as an adult. So we reflected on our parallel upbringings from different points of Los Alamos' history, but also on different sides of the globe, and what this legacy means now in our Atomic City hometown, and what it means to us personally. And so I have a 5-minute edit of the video for you today. This edit was presented to the Dior Photography Award for Young Talents in 2021 in France. So there's French subtitles, but that's why there's French subtitles there. So I hope you enjoy.
I just wanted to hear a bit about your background and kind of your insights into some things. Like, for instance, are you originally from New Mexico?
No, I lived in Colorado, but I've lived in Texas and California as well. I lived in New Mexico about 36 years.
What brought you to New Mexico originally?
My ex-husband wanted to live in New Mexico, and I lived here as a child from age 4 till 12. We lived in Los Alamos. My dad worked at the lab, and then we left, and it was really, really hard to leave because it was idyllic in my head that this was an ideal place to bring up to be a kid. It was safe, and we played in the canyons all the time. Outdoors were really important. So as an adult, my ex-husband wanted to live in Los Alamos because he liked it. We came to visit once, and when he got a job at a hotel, and so I followed him here, and I worked at the hotel as well. We got a divorce, and I stayed. He moved away. That's when I met my husband afterwards and had a kid. And here I am, many, many years later.
When you were growing up, were you aware of anything about nuclear weapons or atomic culture in the area of New Mexico?
Well, I was pretty young. I was in elementary school, and my dad worked at the laboratory. To me, it was a job that he had because he didn't tell us what he did. I didn't become fully aware of the war and the bomb until I was in high school and I took world history. It was a blip in our history. It was a way to tell us that the history of World War II ended because of dropping the bomb. And we were told it saved many lives. Yeah, it was very scientific what we learned about the bomb. Very sterile. We had Pearl Harbor, but it was a naval base. Some people will say that 9/11 was an act of war and that 3,000 people died. But it's not, I don't think we can compare it to what's happening in Syria or what happened in Japan. Or, those are civilians. Those are people who had lives that, they got up that morning to go to work or go to school, and they never occurred to them that, well, there was a war going on, and they did have air raids. But who would have thought that something so major like that, so devastating, that to wipe out a town with anything, as we move away from that event, we'll probably, I want to say we'll put it behind us. It can't stay like this forever. Nothing stays the same. It's easy to get caught up in thinking that things will never change, that we're stuck in this rut. And I think that's what I mean by when things get farther and farther behind us, such as the war, that we'll stop fighting it. We'll come up for air, and we'll realize that that's just the wrong way to live. We'll move forward. I've lived here so long, it feels like I'm an old timer, though I'm not. I haven't been here since the Manhattan Project. There are people who worked at during the Manhattan Project who still live here. And I'd be interested to see what they have to say. Did they change their mind, or did they become convinced that Oppenheimer was a traitor because he was sorry that he was part of this program? I'm probably being too simplistic. I don't think he was sorry that he was part of it, but I think he understood the Pandora's box that he opened up. And I think some people still don't understand what they've opened up.
While I continued to find meaning for my life and search for understanding and recognizing our shared histories. With this opportunity I was already in Japan, and the difficulty of entering the country without a visa, which can be already difficult in the first place, and due to the ongoing pandemic, I decided to focus on my language skills, and I began my life at the Japanese language school in ISI Kyoto, renewing my visa for 2 more years. I used my school breaks and weekends to not only maintain the connections I made in the program and continue studying contemporary art, but also visit new places when I would have the opportunity to do so. So August 2022, I visited Nagasaki to attend the 77th Peace Declaration ceremony on August 9th. I had visited Hiroshima ceremony in 2017, and I wanted to get a chance to see the parallel version in Nagasaki, although in a new world with the coronavirus. So I attended the event at Dejima Mese, which is a convention center in Nagasaki that held a streaming event open to the public for crowd control, as the Peace Park, where the event is usually held during this time, gets quite congested. In both Hiroshima and Nagasaki at this time, it was important to make sure the survivors or the hibakusha were not potentially exposed to the virus. This trip also allowed me to redo a trip I had during 2019, where I was caught in several rainstorms, and I missed a few of the historical sites on my list, as Nagasaki can be quite difficult to navigate with a hilly landscape, let alone when your shoes are filled with water. The hills that run through the city reminded me of Los Alamos, especially of my childhood memories of the forest before they were covered in burn scars from the Cerro Grande fire. So on the morning of August 9th, 1945, the intended target for the second bomb, Kokoro, was obscured by clouds, as the crew were ordered to visually confirm their target before dropping the weapon. So after circling the city 3 times with no visual confirmation, they moved to the next city on the list, which was Nagasaki. So several theories exist why Kokoro was obscured, from bad weather to leftover smoke from the nearby city of Yahata from firebombing the day before, to a smoke screen from industrial workers. But that day, Nagasaki's history would change forever in place of Kokoro. And today, the map on the left is now the city, or the area of Kitakyushu, because today the cities of Kokura and Yahata are now part of the city of Kitakyushu, which is in Fukuoka Prefecture. During the 60s, 50s, during that time, towns in Japan had mergers for the post-war period due to industrialization, and it made it easier to combine, forces as one entity with limited resources. So the city of Kokura from before doesn't really exist today. It's now just absorbed into Kitakyushu. So on the way to Nagasaki in 2022, I stopped at Kitakyushu. And in Katsuyama Park, there's a small plaque that gives context to this unmapped history of the town being saved on August 9th while also paying tribute to the victims of Nagasaki. The park holds a small ceremony every August 9th where a peace bell that was gifted from Nagasaki is rung and a moment of silence is held at 11:02 a.m., the exact moment of the bombing. During my visit here, I also stopped at the Kitakyushu City Museum of Peace, which mainly focuses on the effects of the firebombing that affected this and many other regions in Japan during World War II. Circling back to Kyoto, the town itself could be considered a town of peace with the Kyoto Museum of World Peace, which presents a place to explore war around the world within Japan, as well as host exhibitions that contribute to or discuss the concept of peace. But the nearby city of Yawata is self-described as a nuclear-free town with an awareness of human rights, which begs the question as to why this declaration is not immediately present in Kyoto City proper. What I did find was in 1957, Kyoto declared itself a city of peace from the calls for peace from Hiroshima, but this was the first time I'd seen a sign with this declaration in a prominent part of the city. The big pillar that's in the background is a still from my video that we happened to see when we were walking around the area. And that was pure happenstance. When I was walking with my friends, we were visiting the Hiko Shrine, which is a shrine dedicated to flight. And while we were there, one of my peers asked if I was allowed to film in or around the shrine with my box of paper cranes. We were told that as an individual, the staff member approved, but I would have to get a written statement regarding my intentions for the project and prove it was not a political matter, after which the statement would be sent to someone higher up in the chain of command for approval or rejection. The fear was if my film was taken as a political issue or viewed a certain way from individuals, then the brunt of the backlash would be placed on the shrine or cause others to flock to the area. And the shrine itself also houses a propeller from a Zero or kamikaze fighter plane from the war, so the situation needed to be handled carefully. And you can see the propeller there. And if I remember correctly, because my friend was telling me the story or they were telling us that it was found like in Osaka Bay. So it was, what they could gather was maybe they didn't go through with their mission. They just went into the ocean instead. So I found that it's interesting that Los Alamos does not have a peace monument of any kind when we share this history with Japan, but also contributed to the effects of the Trinity site that downwinders still feel to this day. And some of you may be aware there was an effort in the past for a peace park or peace monument to be built in Los Alamos in the 90s. It began in the fall of 1989 with the children of Arroyo Oso Elementary School in Albuquerque, New Mexico, who raised funds to build the monument with the intention for the monument to be erected in Los Alamos. The plan was declined by Los Alamos in 1994, with the monument moving from Albuquerque City Museum, Santa Fe Children's Museum, and then rededicated at the Albuquerque Balloon Museum in 2013, where it still stands. I don't know if there will ever be a time where Los Alamos can have a peace park, garden, or monument, but it begins with dialogue, which is always a feat in and of itself, like today, so thank you. And then I don't think there's any right or wrong way to process history or trauma, and I think it can be seen from a popular Japanese phrase that I witnessed visiting the two cities, which is Hiroshima rages, Nagasaki prays, ikinari no Hiroshima, inori no Nagasaki. It's very noticeable how both cities approach the concept of peace differently, and it's difficult to describe, but you can feel it in the air, that Hiroshima seemed to have a more touristic feel, while Nagasaki, maybe because it's more isolated or from its religious influence, since it has the historically large Catholic population before World War II. So there's more solemnness felt there. So what's next is, for me, I think storytelling or having dialogue with people. So this image here is from a Kamishibai presentation and workshop I did in 2022. I was a research fellow, which was like part of the school. They asked me to participate in this, and I was a passion project to research Kamishibai, which could be a whole nother, lecture in and of itself, so I'll try to explain what it is, but it has a history from temples to propaganda to post-war peace to modern manga is what it's attributed to. So you use pictures to tell your stories and interact with the audience. And so I did one that was about a pigeon that was flying from Hiroshima, Nagasaki, and Los Alamos, and what does peace mean for all of these cities. And I hope that we can all, especially in these uncertain times, I think, like especially with AI, be more in reality and present more physical things or take in stories that people have that are real. So thank you. That's it. And yeah, Q&A time.
All right. Yeah, you can hear me. If anyone has questions or things they would like to, ask Leia.
Thank you. Domo arigatou gozaimashita. I really appreciate this. It's been many, many years since, I'm Jody Benson, by the way. I'm not of this church. I'm of the community, though. It's been many years since we've been trying to get Los Alamos to acknowledge its history, not just its magnificent history of science and technology, but of our world, of our commitment to the world with what we introduced. And I think right now, since you bring it up, Leia, this is a really good time to try to find a place here in Los Alamos for the peace statue. The kids who brought it, the kids developed that peace statue since 1989, as Leah was saying. They saw the end of the Cold War. They decided that because they believed it would be the end of world wars, they would contribute something for peace. And what they contributed was, these are elementary school kids, remember, they put out a call for this thing. They designed a contest for this thing. They raised money for this thing. They had a design contest for the thing. And a high school student in Dallas, it was Dallas. A high school student in Dallas was the one who completed the design. 1994, I was living here then. I didn't know about this. It was brought in front of our Los Alamos County Council. And they thought, no brainer. Everybody wants peace, and they want it here. And some of the arguments were, and some of those county councilors are still alive. I talked to one just Wednesday about this. They said the kids had been energized by peace activists, that if we brought that sculpture to Los Alamos, it would be anti-war, anti-science, anti-Los Alamos. So they would not give the kids any place to put it. But now, things are changing. We have we look at all the people here in this room. I think maybe it doesn't need to be on ground zero. What did you call it?
The Hypocenter?
Yeah, the Hypocenter. Doesn't need to be there. It could be at one of the churches or in one of the giant parking lots around, and build a peace garden so that we can be a sister city to Kyoto. We can be a sister city to anybody who's looking for peace. And I think everybody in this room, all everybody in this room needs to do is, when we bring it in front of county council again, say, yeah, let's do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Jody. Woo. Can we talk to our Arts and Public Places Board? Is that who you would talk to, right? Let's do it.
I enjoyed your talk very much. I taught in Japan in 1960, 58 to 60, so I'm curious about what's going on today. But can you talk more about the university? Did you go to the arts university been changed that had been the military training for the men, young boys, the Rikon, what was it called, Rikon?
Ritsumeikan, or
Yes.
So I went to Ritsumeikan in 2017 because I did a study abroad project, or a study abroad with UNM, because I have a program with several universities in Japan. So that was for my undergraduate degree, and then for the art program, it's Kyoto University of the Arts. So it's separate from Kyoto University as well as the other. It's its own university.
So are the exhibits that describe what went on during the war still in the museum?
Yes, so the Kyoto, the Peace Museum that's near Ritsumeikan, or part of Ritsumeikan, they still have exhibits that talk about, which I think is important, they talk about what Japan, did to their neighbors during World War II, which you don't always see or don't always see in textbooks. So it was there, as well as the context of war globally, not just like what affected Japan or what Japan did to others, but what happens in global context, because there is often rotating exhibits about current conflicts that come to the museum.
I think it'd be wonderful if our museum and that museum were also connected as a way of understanding what happened, whatever. That's just a few ideas.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Others? Someone else? Oh, yeah.
Following up on that, I just wondered if you've been in touch with the Los Alamos Japan project. It was started through the Los Alamos History Museum when Judith Stauber was here, and she spun it off. And she no longer lives in town, but she still has that project, and a grandson of, I guess it was President Truman, I think, is part of her Los Alamos Japan project, and they've gone back and forth and they organize. So I think she would be very interested in what you've done, and I think you would be, if you don't know the project, she has been doing this work, but she's no longer here in town, but I think the project is still going on, as far as I know, the Los Alamos Japan project. And originally it had been a piece of our local history museum.
Yeah, I met them in 2017 at the Peace Memorial that was held in Hiroshima. There were people from Los Alamos that had come to bring cranes, but I remember there was a lot of dialogue about what exactly could be written in what they were given to the town, because it, again, couldn't really be political or didn't want any pressure on anybody. So I've talked with her when I met her at there, and I haven't talked to her in a while, but I've kind of been all over the place, because I've settled, even though it's been 3 years since I've been back, it's still like, I felt more culture shock coming back here than I did going to Japan. So it's been an adjustment period being back here. But I'm trying to re-up what I did to, make contacts again. So, yeah.
Cool. Others? Yeah.
I think part of the keys to peace is storytelling, as you say, and there's countless stories to be told. The Japanese themselves have been, I think, very energetic and forthcoming on telling parts of the story at the end of the war in books that they wrote and in movies that they created about Japan at that time. And if you look in the book and movie, Japan's Longest Day, there's a video, a movie of that in the library, Los Alamos Library. You can see it, and there's a book written by the Japanese. Movie was made by Japanese. The book's written by Japanese historians and news people. There was a sequel to it, or it's actually a remake of Japan's Longest Day movie, was Emperor in August, which came out in 2015. I don't know if you're aware of that. Those stories, they dug into the end of the war in great depth in the 1960s. By they, I mean the Japanese. And the book tells a lot about things the Japanese people did not know at that time. We did not know at that time. I don't think our military knew at that time of things that were going on with the War Council in Japan, who were the people really in charge at that time. And those are all elements of the story too. And you bring those together with other elements which you brought forward, I think the chances of peace increase. And she talked about the museum at Kyoto and the museum here. They could actually, with technology today, people in the Los Alamos Museum could look at the Kyoto Museum and they could look at our museum. And the exhibits might even change some because of that. That's the nature of broad storytelling and parallel conversation.
And also part of the story here, I'm sorry to take up time, but part of the story is the Santa Fe internment camp in Santa Fe. I was on the committee that tried to put a marker, and there was tremendous resistance because it was brought to the city council as a monument. And the survivors of what? Well, there was misunderstanding of who was in the camp. And it was thought that there were Japanese soldiers in the camp, and so a monument to them was an insult to the survivors of the Bataan Death March who got to come home because of the atomic bomb. If the atomic bomb had not been dropped, they would have been killed before we arrived at their camp. So there's more to the story, and I can help you with that. I would love to visit with you about that. But that's part of Santa Fe recognizing. We put the marker, and it was the room was full of people against the marker. The police were there, and it was a tie vote, and the mayor had to break the vote to put up a marker that placed the donation, the place where Japanese Americans or men who had come over and had lived in the United States for 20 years were rounded up. Yes, there are several movies, but that's part of the story, not just Los Alamos. And what happened to the 120,000 Japanese who were living on the coast, and the men that were brought to the Santa Fe camp, or also Lordsburg, were men whose, by what their occupation was, were rounded up as potential spies, not what they did. So I'm sorry, I can go on. I'm a historian, and this is one of the issues that I looked at. In just a few weeks, the Albuquerque chapter of the Japanese American Citizen League will be meeting in Nevada, and they are trying to tell the story, and they have gotten funds from the Park Service to tell the story of the 4 different areas in New Mexico where Japanese were held during World War II. So I just throw that out. I don't know whether people in Los Alamos know much about it, but I give talks on it, so.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, Aaron.
Thank you. I really enjoyed your presentation. Have you thought about or explored the other Manhattan Project sites and how they relate to this as well? So Hanford, for example, and Oak Ridge, and how they fit into this story?
I've wanted to. I don't know how to describe this other than this is my weird special interest because I visited all kind of things related to this. In Japan, there's still places I want to visit that are tangentially related, like the Fukushima area, because I do have museums now and monuments from the accident, but I've wanted to visit the places that are related to here, the other Manhattan Project sites. and reading about them. The closest I've been is recently when I went to Las Vegas. I went to they have an atomic museum there as well, like about the testings that they did, and that was interesting. It was I actually screamed because they have a room you can feel. The room vibrates. You can feel it like a test going off, and it was actually very visceral. But so that's somewhere I'd recommend going if you want to experience that. So.
Any other, questions or? Was that Jane folding cranes in the video? That was awesome.
Yeah, I contacted people, my friends in Los Alamos during 2020 because I couldn't go film myself to film them folding paper cranes around the pond. So that's, I told Tara and Jane and William were 5 years younger or 6 years younger, I guess now. So.
That was cool. Well, cool. If not, thank you again so much, Leah. This is awesome. And I would just, again, we know, dialogue, like you said, leads to peacemaking. And so just encourage this continuation of the dialogue. Petition the Art and Public Places Board. I mean, if we want that to come to Los Alamos eventually, that was the initial intention, I think, right? So, we should have a peace monument here, in my personal opinion. But, do you have anything else you wanted to?
Just thank you for coming and all your questions and comments, and maybe we can have more opportunities like this in the future.
Oh, I do have a question for you. Would you ever want to tell your, how do you say it, manga?
The
Kamishibai story, the pigeon?
Yeah, I could tell the pigeon story. Oh. Yeah.
So we could have you back.
Because I did a workshop and then had everybody make their own story. So.
Ooh. So maybe in the future we will have another event with Leah. Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you again, all, and thank you, Leah, so much.